And I'm glad that DEI is dead. I do think it is dead. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is dead in this nation. It should be dead. I think DEI personally is racist and sexist, either one. You have 1 year patrol officers as field training officers. These people don't know their head from their ass yet. I didn't when I was 1 year on, and they're teaching newbies, new rookies, tactics or whatever, there's no way that works. We don't do enough for our police officers. We don't support them enough. We don't pay them enough. We don't protect them enough. We don't help them out enough. We don't have enough of them. You can't build a society without law and order.
Blu Wolf Podcast.
This episode of the Blu Wolf Podcast is brought to you by Blue Line Professional Inspections. Check out blproinspections.com or call 210-771-8831 for all your inspection needs, including home inspection, wood-destroying insect inspection, sewer drain inspection, and on-site water treatment inspection. Blue Line is a first responder-owned business.
Hey everyone, I'm Willie Cantu with the Blu Wolf Podcast. Here once again. I am by myself. My buddy David Sapansky is on assignment, more like babysitting for his grandchild. But we'll miss him. He's been a great asset to the podcast lately. But today is hopefully another interesting podcast with a great guest. I'll introduce him here in a little bit. But I'd like to kind of do a little run up into our podcast. It's Tuesday, April 29th, last day for early voting, right? In the local elections, the mayoral elections, the city council elections. Final date is May 3rd. There's 27 mayoral candidates, a crap load, let's put it that way. And it's since 2009, it's the first time that there's not an incumbent on the ballot, according to reports. I didn't really pay attention to stuff like that, but I did my research and all that. Ron Nirenberg, the current mayor, is been termed out. They're sitting incumbents in districts 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. So they're being challenged in their districts, and there's some other seats. Let me find it here. I'm sorry, I lost it. But there's 4 other council seats that are wide open. So as you've seen on the other podcasts, we've gotten into politics, and that's something I never thought I would in this in this role, to tell you the truth. And I, like I've said before, I didn't know where it would take me. But we've interviewed Manny Pelaez, who's current district or city council member of District 8, Rolando Pablos, who was Secretary of State at one time in Texas, and Melissa Haverda. And we're thankful for that. They came on to talk with us and give us their views on, our concern was mostly public safety, but other things like that. And I got to put it out there. It's no secret if you watch podcast and my social media, I am a conservative. I never really cared about politics until I had my first child. I was kind of running crazy and that was about 12 years ago, and then I'm more of a feeler. I pay attention. I try to look up as much information as possible. My biggest fear is just to appear ignorant to things. If I'm going to talk about things, I don't want to sound like an idiot because I didn't pay attention, or I followed one stream of information and I'm off, because you can easily find information out easily on your phone now. But I'm going to put it out there that's the way I lean. So San Antonio and Bexar County is blue. They vote mostly Democrat. They voted overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris in
24.
Yeah, 24, and right now, I think there's a very few conservatives. Now, mind you, they tell you in the city races that they don't talk about their parties, or they're supposed to be partisan. I don't believe that. That's total crap, because their views align with, again, certain one or the other parties. So I think that San Antonio will lag behind. We saw what happened in the nation with Donald Trump and winning. He won 200 and how many counties out of here? He won a whole bunch of counties, 242 counties out of 254. So that's 12 counties that didn't vote for him. So that's overwhelming majority in Texas. But here in San Antonio, we think that sticking with the same things are going to work. Well, the nation spoke, but I think the next election, or this election coming up, I was hoping would see a change as well in the city. I'm a pessimist at heart. I don't think so. I have always said this smart-ass quote that if you want to, if you're going to elect another clown, you're going to have another circus. And that's just a saying. I'm not calling these people clowns, but I don't know. I might at some point, depending on their decisions and all that. But I have, and I couldn't think of anybody better to ask and us speak about these issues in Bexar County than the vice chair of the Bexar County GOP, Mr. Kyle Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for reaching out like you did and actually pressing me. As you see, I'm so friggin' busy with family mainly. I did retire 3 years ago, but I just opened up more room for everything else that I was trying to fit in when I was working. Work was getting in the way there for a little bit. But there's so much to talk about with you, and you and I have spoken on a couple of occasions, and your wealth of knowledge. You ran for congressman against Joaquin Castro in 2022.
I did.
Yeah. So and you're going to do it again.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, man.
Yeah, nothing official. I mean, for me, it's the same thing. Well, it was interesting on politics. I was the same way, right? I'm a healthcare background. I'm a CEO of a hospital here in San Antonio, about 20 years experience, bachelor's, master's in health administration and family thing, big blended family of 8 kids, and had no real interest.
That.
Yeah. 8 kids. Yeah, blended. My wife had 3, I had 3, and we had 2 together.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, blended, but had no interest in politics. And then, I saw what was happening in the 2020 election, got involved in Congressman, then candidate Tony Gonzalez, Texas 23, and then got involved in the party, then got involved in some other things, and then decided to run myself. So it's been a student of politics for the last 5 years for me, and still to this day, I spend at least 2 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week studying local, state, federal issues to make sure, as you said yourself, make sure if I'm going to speak on something, I'm going to speak intelligently, at least have some credibility of what I'm talking about. So
how did you think with that big of a family, let me take on something more? I mean, you're busy as heck already. I mean, you're still working.
Yeah.
So obviously you have to have a lot of support from your wife.
Yeah.
Right.
There's days I get some more than others. Yeah. I can pick my battles on that. There's some days I'm like, sorry, babe, you're coming with this one. The rest of the time, she's very supportive of letting me do what we need to do.
That's important.
The thing for me is, if not me, who? Right? If I decide not to fight or to get into a race or to help out or get involved, who? The next person? Do I expect somebody else to do it but not me? So for me, I got involved, and it's a huge passion. I've been blessed with certain skills from God. I'm a religious, faithful person, and I definitely think God's hand was involved in my heart of having me run. Obviously, I lost. So did he know I'm going to lose? Maybe. But it's something for me I needed to learn.
Well, you don't know if you lost. I mean, because you showed up for the first time.
I have not lost personally, but I lost a race.
Correct.
And it allowed me to meet some just phenomenal human beings during the time on the campaign trail, people that love America. I met some very wealthy millionaires, billionaires. I met some very successful people. I met low-level people that just I met so many great people and loved every minute of it. It's very tough, though, to run, to work, and to have a family. So, yeah.
Well, tell me the true driving force. Is it your family? A better future for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say number one is love of country, right? I'm prior military. I did serve in the military.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love our country. It's love of family and realizing that if we don't make a change in this nation, right, obviously, and even local here, that one, I can't complain about it to my kids or anybody else because I wasn't part of a change solution. I didn't fight for it. And two, it's leaving a better America for them. America that I grew up in is not the same America now. I think we have hints of coming back to some of that greatness that we were. But yeah, those are several of the reasons. My kids run the campaign trail. I remember one time Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came to San Antonio, and I led a huge protest rally, and we had hundreds of people, had multiple articles on it from the news. And I brought like 4 of my kids. I said, look, you guys can read about something in the textbook, or you can come witness it and be a part of it and understand how to exercise your right of freedom, right, of free speech and free press. And so it was fascinating. I had one kid that walked with me almost the majority of the time. They still talk about it, want me to run again. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. AOC, they, like you said, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, also known as AOC commonly. I being involved in listening to politics, she's a radical. Yeah. She's a member of the squad, and they're all radicals. She is slowly kind of taking a back seat because, and I'm not trying to, even though it is rude to her in a sense, but there's other podcasters and that call her the dumbest member in Congress. She is losing that seat because we got some other people stepping up in Congress.
We do. I would say not only she's actually the front-running leading face of the party, which is even scarier for the Democratic Party. Right, nationally, the Democratic Party is at a 21% approval rating and dropping. Even after losing the election, they're continuing to decline because of Bernie Sanders and AOC are the most popular, the most vocal, getting the press. Bernie Sanders and her did a big thing talking about as they're flying on $220,000 worth of private jets, and it's
fighting oligarchies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
and which house did Bernie leave?
He's three of his houses, multi-millionaire. Yeah, I love
it. It is so. These people, don't they have anybody with any sense to say, hey, we probably don't want to fly like that?
I think their closest one nationally probably would have been Gavin Newsom until the fires of California. I don't know if he can recover from that. It was so
He's trying. He started his own podcast.
Yeah, and it was actually very brilliant. One of his first guests was Charlie Kirk, which is a very huge podcaster and a very smart guy to President Trump, and very brilliant guy. And he had him on, and it's very smart to start leaning towards it. He's got the Democrat in the bank if he does run, but from my standpoint, and it's almost very similar to some of our local politics, they don't give a rat's ass. Because I apologize. Give a rat's ass about.
You'll hear me throw something out like that.
They just don't. They don't give a rat's ass about the people.
No.
And even several people in our races running for office now, they just don't care. They're doing it for power, for title, for money, for whatever the reason they're doing for. I don't think it's for the right reasons. And I can list several things going on. So,
that's very strong what you just said there. Power, it's all for me is what it is, and I equate it to like the old Gladiator movie. Julius Caesar, he wanted to give the power to a soldier, to Maximus, and he said no, I don't want it, and he said that's exactly why you should have it, because he was not going to abuse it, and it was a great movie to say that, but those people are very few and far between. You know what I mean? And we're seeing it, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit. And I hopefully you and I didn't. Obviously, you can tell me. We can kind of get deep and some conversation about some people that we both know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I see it happening with some of these people. But I just believe, like, for one, I mentioned that San Antonio and Bexar County always lag behind in trends. Always.
Yeah.
Something happened. We have Austin just an hour away, and they start something. Or they're, I love Austin, by the way.
Beautiful city.
Yeah, beautiful city. Lots to do. The food, events. You got college football.
Crime's out of control. The leadership's liberal. You can go down that road.
Right.
Too,
right. We can go that way too, but San Antonio will lag behind in those things with them too. And of course, what we saw in the nation with what happened in the presidential election in 2024, Trump was showing behind in the polls, which again, here we are listening to polls, like the polls were wrong way back here. So why are we flip-flopping on this? And I catch myself doing it. Oh, we're doing good in the polls. Come on now, get back to reality. But I just think that San Antonio, I just don't think it's gotten bad enough. I listened. Well, Dan Bongino doesn't have a podcast anymore, but he has always said that dude was right to me 100% of the time, and I got a lot of my news from it. But he said it has not gotten bad enough in San Antonio, Bexar County.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I'm trying to internalize what you just said. One of the things that reminded me as you were saying that is Charlie Kirk. We brought him up earlier. He shared on Patrick David, right? You've seen PBD's podcast, phenomenal one. If you haven't seen him, watch him. He's got some great content. Yeah, great content. But Charlie Kirk went on there and he was talking particularly about President Trump's election in 24. And in 2016, President Trump had the male voter turnout. In 2020, he did not. And that's why you saw heavy in 2024, the male voter turnout. That's why you saw him going to UFC events. That's why you saw him going to, I can't even think of the other big podcast people like Charlie Kirk. Joe Rogan, right? You saw, and they have massive.
He's the number one podcast in the nation.
Massive male voter listening age, right? He got the black voter male turnout. He got the Hispanic male voter turnout, particularly here in Bexar County. He improved to 45%. That was a 9% increase here in Bexar County. It's huge. And for me, I keep saying that President Trump, of course, you took Texas, but the Texas Democratic chair resigned after the election, and the Bexar County chair also resigned after this past election.
Of the DNC.
Of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
There's no way to not correlate those two. And then you had counties across the southern part of Texas that are 186 years of voting Democratic, voted Republican. The one thing I keep sharing, and I will keep saying in my face, two things. He's only going to have about 2 years. That's it. Not 4 years.
Yeah, because of the terms. Yeah.
And it's not even the terms. It's the 2 years of the voter base that supported him. If he cannot do some of the stuff he said, they will no longer vote quote unquote Republican. And that's the second piece. The people that voted for President Trump were not Republicans.
I see.
The people that voted for President Trump wanted somebody who will fight for America and America and Americans. That's what they drew to them. And that's why you saw independents and Democratic voting Republican. They are not Republicans, but they voted Republican for the candidate. That's why you saw Governor Abbott did not do so well as a Republican candidate in Bexar County. And that's why in 2022, we got swept in the judges. So we have to realize that if any time to capitalize on that conservative movement away from woke, crazy left, now is the time to do it.
Sure.
On the national level, what you're seeing that's playing out right in front of us is the federal activist judges stopping President Trump on doing some of his initiatives.
It's all noise. A lot of it's noise and roadblocks.
It is.
They know he'll get through. I mean, that is the playbook of the Democrats. All this lawfare that they throw out there.
Yeah.
Do they want to win it? Sure. But if they lose it on its face, like say in the court, they still want. They still want because they held you back a little bit. They're trying to hold him back from his agenda to not reach it within 2 years.
Which the agenda is America first.
Correct.
And make America great.
I mean, it's a strategy in all, and it bothers me to no end. Because here's the other thing: they've killed this confidence in institutions. You're having these activist judges who are supposed to be nonpartisan,
but they support it. The Democratic Party nationally.
No, they do that
and local.
But what I'm saying is that like we just saw a friggin' judge hinder and harbor a fugitive, a friggin' illegal alien, in front of the victims that he victimized and assaulted because of her own friggin' beliefs. You know what I mean? That is, you're. Any judge or whatever, no matter how much they hate and it goes against their own politics and views, they still have to follow the law.
So the president of El Salvador, who did this very thing, said the number one thing they do in order to protect their country, particularly against criminals and protect their citizens, was to get rid of activist judges. That was his number one advice. And how do they do it? They impeached them all. We don't really have that same process. The best way we can get rid of federal activist judges is defunding them. Literally, you're out of a job. Yeah. You no longer have funding, you're gone. And that's all part of Congress, which Congress has to do that. So President Trump did some phenomenal things. I mean, he literally won all 7 swing states. He won the not only the electoral vote, he won the popular vote, right? Yeah. I don't know if I told you, I was one of the presidential electors for the state of Texas.
I read that.
Yeah.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, it's a big deal.
Speaking of that, I didn't plan on talking about it, but and I hadn't heard talk about this election. But remember the last election?
Yeah.
They were trying to intimidate.
Yeah.
Intimidate those electors.
Yeah. I didn't get
any of that.
Nothing.
No.
It was very unseamless. Everybody, all 40 state of Texas has 40. So it's 38 council or federal congressional seats plus the 2 additional Senate seats is where the count makes up for the state. So we had 40, and all 40 voted for J.D. Vance and President Trump. So
what do we do in Bexar County and San Antonio to increase the voter? I mean, obviously everything's we're trying to change them into voting.
One of the things I did when I ran in 22 and we lost, I lost. Every Republican lost here except for the 5 incumbents. We picked up Grant Moody as a commissioner and a state rep, which Lyle Larson left, right? So we picked up like 2 additional seats. We had like 7 Republicans across the board. We had 63 races in 2022, and every single one of us lost on early voting and mail-in ballots. Every single one, including the incumbents. So Chip Roy lost. But down the ballot, I mean, we got swept judges. Abbott lost here in Bexar County. Ken Paxton lost in Bexar County. Railroad commissioners, you name it, land commissioner.
So who was the force here that on the Democrat side? What organization is the force?
I mean, so in regards to the DA race, you had George Soros put 1.5 into Joe Gonzalez, so he's backed. I don't know if people realize that. Elon Musk just tweeted about that a few months ago. So, I'm actively recruiting for DA right now. Somebody who wants to run against the crazy district attorney we have. There you got Paxton and Cornyn heating up.
You tried to unseat Ted Cruz.
Yeah, well, not Cruz, Cornyn. So Cruz
but they tried to unseat before.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did. That one was an interesting race too. You had Collins that raised a lot of money. They both were about $75 to $80 million each. Cruz had a super PAC that put in $200 million on one subject. Take the guess what the subject was. Out of crime, border security, economy. You can name all that stuff. Take a choice what it was. I'll put up. You're not going to guess it, but I'm just curious what you think it was. $200 million.
I would guess the border.
Men and women's sports.
Huh.
Colin Allred.
Okay.
Colin Allred supported
because he had
and women's sports.
Yes.
And that was a subject that crossed both parties. A lot of Democrats do not support men and women's sports. Particularly if you have a daughter, a granddaughter, you can mentally, rationally understand having a man in a locker room or play against, and they put $200 million worth. I'm very close to Cruz's team. They thought he was going to win by like 4%. He won by like 6.5%. Okay. Just killed him. And that was a huge factor. Kind of interesting race. It's interesting this cycle. So when I lost, we went back to the party, and I knew we had to change the Republican Party. We got a new chair, Chris Kuhn. She's phenomenal, chairwoman, full of energy. Prior women's club, Bexar County Republican women president, so she knows that. She's been in politics for many, many years. Laura and I have just a breath of fresh air. Our meetings are great. We got a little bit of our crazy right wing out of our party. We got precincts built up. We started raising money, got a lot of support, momentum.
So tell me the crazy who?
Well, right wings. I mean, every party has it, right? Left wing of the liberals from the Democrat. We got far right wing from the Republican Party. They just don't know how to get along with people.
In our own Republican Party, okay.
Yeah, that's the same thing in the Democrat Party. I know people inside the Democratic Party, and they talk about how crazy their meetings are, fighting, and I mean, they have it. The Republican Party has it too, right?
I've always said this, and it's I believe it's held true. As a strategist, because that's what I had to have gotten a little, professional about strategy in my line of work, police work. But there's certain things that I'll see that I don't like, but I'll respect.
Yeah.
Because, they actually did something to obviously further their cause or whatever. Democrats are 100% Democrat. Republicans are not. You have your rhinos in our party, because I've yet to see. They're almost all united, and I mean, obviously you're deeper in it than me, but on face value, I see these guys hold together no matter how stupid it is.
I agree. And some of them are more hardcore, liberal, like obviously the ones that fall like AOC or the Squad, they're way more liberal on the Senate side. You got Warren and a couple of other people, Chuck Schumer, and even though he's getting a lot of heat.
But see, those people weren't like that.
Chuck they weren't. I know.
Nor was Nancy Pelosi.
And that's the problem is when the extreme on both sides, I call them the 5%ers, right? The 5% on the left, 5% on the far right, when they become the focal point. And that's what happened with President Biden. And the American public is pretty good at, you go too extreme on either side, they'll bring it back, right? We went way too far left under Biden, and some of his policies or whatever, whoever led it and was auto pin, brought us back. And that's why you saw President, House, Senate brought back, right? If we go too far this way, the country will bring us back. That's just how historically it does that.
And it's funny because we've gotten into leftists, and I did get a little flack from someone who claimed to be a true liberal. He's like, well, let's not quite say that because you're almost saying it like it's a bad word. I'm like, well, okay, so let me try leftists, because, you have people that call themselves centrists, and then independents and whatever. But I do believe that there was that group, the AOCs, Ayanna Presley's, Cori Bush's, all them, now Jasmine Crockett, who's up and coming, she calls herself a sophomore. They went far left. Yeah. They went far left. And then they looked over and says, y'all are far right. Yeah. Now, mind you, we have what you're saying, further right people.
We do.
But y'all are far, like when we talk about the DA, Nico LaHood.
Yeah.
He got primaried out by Joe Gonzalez with Soros's money as a Democrat because Nico wasn't the right Democrat.
Yeah.
He wasn't as far left as Soros wanted him. You know what I mean? And that is no lie. And I still don't think that Joe Gonzalez is far left enough, which is why he had to hire the Ren Collective.
Maybe
out of Austin. I truly believe that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, because he's an old school Hispanic guy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that they don't believe. I know they don't believe it. But they're such cowards. They won't stand alone on their stuff. Yeah. I think that's what happened to Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, because Biden wasn't like that either. Even though he was a jackass, his whole career, but he
wasn't half bad. I've heard some of his stuff. Like, and again, I'm fine with difference of opinion. Even if you have a difference of opinion, I can sit and eat lunch with people. I have friends that I'm Democrat with, I talk regularly to, and I know where they stand. It doesn't bother me. I actually have a lot of respect for people that stand their ground and have their own opinion. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but yet we can still find that common ground where we can work together and find a solution.
But there's certain things that people convolute with opinions as to something that, like, like police, defunding the police. You know what I mean? That's not an opinion. It's a stupid
I agree.
idea.
There are subjects you can't come back. There's no way that you can.
And I can't have conversations with people.
I agree.
Like
the same thing for me is like abortion. Where's the middle ground on that?
Right.
Half a child?
I was going to say that, but
for me, I'm very confident where I stand. I don't talk a lot about it because it's a very controversial subject. But the defunding the police was interesting. I'm surprised. The Prop B that we actually passed, stopping it here. We're out of 18 cities across the United States, we're the only city in the entire United States that didn't pass it in 2020. The Prop B.
Were you involved with?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
How so?
I mean, just, behind the scenes, telling people, talking to people. And then we had that another charter in what was the other charter here in Bexar County? They're pushing on it again.
There was a Prop A and there was I think it was Prop A.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's crazy is the way they word those when you vote. It's it's a word salad that makes you think if I vote this certain way, then I'm voting against it. But in actuality, you vote for it. Very craftily done.
Yeah.
Again, as a strategist, wow.
Yeah.
With that. Speaking of that, defunding the police, it's a good thing that we won it, that we were successful in defeating that proposition. And it was, and I'll mention this, I don't want to go too far into it, but for the police department, because we need that money, no doubt. But to me, the leftists run this city. The city government is leftist, so therefore they hire the chief. They hire the chief of fire. And now, maybe they have been this whole time, but they're Maria Villagomez. She's really involved in the promotional process in our department, and no doubt probably the fire department. So she's telling the chief who to, promote and who this would be the best person when she doesn't know. To me, and I'll say this, I don't give a shit. Maria Villagomez, you don't know shit about public safety. I'm sick of this lady because none of her decisions have made any sense.
Yeah.
And to me, I should hire the chief, give him some autonomy and a lot of autonomy because he's supposed to be the expert. He should be an expert. He's the top dog in law enforcement. But you don't give him the choices or the autonomy to decide who should be best in these positions.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine he might have some of it, but I no doubt, and I've heard that she steps in and, talking about the police administration as a whole nother subject. But what they've done, and through her, they've changed policy within the police department. And it's policy, this handcuffing policy on the police officers, which still helped their agenda of defeating the police, destroying the police, because that was the whole point. Stupid shit of policy, and particularly, and I've said this numerous times on the podcast, de-escalation, and that's across the nation. Everybody thinks de-escalation is the answer. If you want to take a back seat and react more to someone that has already escalated, that by all means you do it, but don't tell me to do it with my life or my health. You know what I mean? There are ways. I grew up offensive in the police department. That works more than being defensive.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for it, no doubt. But I believe a lot of times if officers are more offensive first, then it's going to prevent them from getting to the news stories, the shootings and the killings of justified, what I believe in these situations. But that's what's going on in the police department. They are changing policy, and sometimes it's vague enough to make a decision like, is it going to be a political problem? I've seen the chief wash his hands of officers on justified actions, fire them, we'll let arbitration bring them back. You know what I mean? Then they come back. We've been successful with that, but they've actually gotten their agenda over because we are weaker as a police department in San Antonio, and that's not because of my idea. No, I've been gone for almost 3 years, but I still talk to a lot of the officers. I pay attention. They call me because they're concerned. They know I have a voice. Yeah, I have no repercussions.
Yeah,
to tell me about the things that are happening. A lot of the seniority is leaving, whether just because it's time and through attrition. I do know a lot of them are looking at their numbers in their pension to see if they can survive on that and what else I can do. I've yet to hear one person going, I'm going to do it here and then I'll leave. They're looking to see if they can leave sooner, which is bad. So you're losing that experience, the old schoolers, and you're having these new, because they're doing a lot of recruiting, and they'll tout, oh, we're hiring 65 new officers this year. Yeah, but that 65 guys don't know their head from their ass yet.
How many are they losing though?
Right, through retirements, through just resigning, because people are resigning.
Do you know? I'm curious. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I do know it's a lot enough that you have 1 year patrol officers as field training officers. These people don't know their head from their ass yet. I didn't when I was 1 year on, and they're teaching newbies, new rookies, tactics or whatever. There's no way that works. There's no way that works. So that in itself is obvious. If you have to resort to that low of experience to train other officers, then you've lost a lot and a dangerous. Because really, to me, and it's always been known, 5-6 years, you're kind of still a rookie, unless you came from another department or whatever else. So that's where we've lost here, and it continues to erode, and I don't know how we come back. Because if they get rid of this chief, Villagomez is going to hire another one that she can control. because Scully brought him over. Scully brought McManus over. And the fire chief Hood, because they're buddies, so she can control them. I believe, just like she did with the fire department, she's going to look for another female. Because why? Because DEI.
Yeah.
You know, we're still on that bullshit, which is we're trying to get rid of in the nation. I believe that. I could be wrong. I hope she surprises me. But I truly believe, I mean, that would be historic for her to bring in two chiefs, female chiefs of, of public safety.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see a better victory for her to do that. And all honesty, up front, I'm hearing good things about the fire chief so far. So sometimes they get it right.
Yeah.
And I know her personally, and I'm going to tell her, Valerie, keep up the good work. I'm hearing people like you, so I'm happy for that. Nothing against females in any kind of institution. I just want the right ones.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it definitely. And I'm glad that DEI is dead. I do think it is dead. Diversity, equity, inclusion is dead in this nation. It should be dead. I think DEI personally is racist and sexist, either one. You don't need to.
Because you have to be.
You have to be in order to say it. So they're saying it's because there are people racist and sexist that we have to have it, which is actually the complete opposite. I'm a firm believer in merit, excellence, and intelligence, MEI, right? The best person with the best skill set.
Right?
Yeah. Best person with the best skill set wins the position, and you have that. Yeah, the police stuff is kind of interesting, man. I was at, probably about 2 months ago, Manny Pelias and Chief McManus had an event, town hall event. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first things out of Chief McManus is saying, crime rates are down and the city's safer. And I leaned over to somebody that I was sitting next to.
I have that in my notes, by the way, but now that you bring it up, let's go with it.
I leaned over and I said, we had 19,000 cars stolen in the city of San Antonio last year. In 1 year, 19,000. That number is like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And Chief, obviously I didn't get an answer or ask that, but she was like, well, unless you're a drug dealer or you're out doing something bad at 2 a.m., you got nothing to worry about. And I'm like, yeah, but people are breaking the cars and houses. People are still getting shot. Those cars are being stolen. We got TDA gang stuff all over the place. You got police not doing it. The response time is low. Like the morale is down. I can keep going and going and going.
Yep.
So just because you have one thing down, which I don't even know if it's completely accurate either. I saw the news put it out this week again too. So I think we've got some national issues with police, right? We've had such a negative connotation and actually people killing police officers that we have a national problem of respecting law and order. And some of that starts at the nation, the top, even back in the Biden administration.
It started with Obama.
Sure.
The war on police started with Obama. But now there was a point where I knew it, and then you didn't want to say it because he was being defended, and then they would act like they liked the police, and of course during that what they call the insurrection, that now they're so worried about the police and all the situations that they had, and it's like, well, first on this side you don't like the police, but here now that you can use them as an excuse to show that you're savvy or not savvy, but a supporter of the police, then there it is, and I saw it, it's like, you don't care about the police. You're just using them as a tool, because then they lied about it, saying that one officer, Sicknick, died there. He got killed. He didn't die there. Yeah. It's tragic that the guy did, die.
I mean, definitely the BLM that was probably the worst I've seen in this nation. The riots all over the place.
We're still suffering from it.
We are.
We're still suffering from it.
So that's a tough one to come back. In regards to the Texas or Bexar County leadership, I as you mentioned that, I read a book from Newt Gingrich. I don't know if you know who Newt Gingrich is, right? Newt wrote a book called The March to Majority. And he wrote in his book the strategy that he took to turn a 40-year Democratic-led House Republican, and what he did and able to do it. And it's littered with strategies on that. One of the things that I still have not forgotten, I read it about 2 years ago maybe, which was become a noisy Republican. And I think oftentimes we as Republicans or conservatives, whatever title you want to put yourself, we get shy. We're shy of the media, of the press. we don't want to talk about our values and our systems, and you just got to do it. And that's where I've, was reaching out to you. Hey, let's talk about some of this stuff. Let's have these conversations and dialogue. So, I've been in multiple articles and issues going on across the city for that very purpose. I'm reaching out to the press and media, trying to be a friendly voice to them, and somebody that's not ultra right crazy, that I'm a normal human being with common sense on there. So,
and that's what it takes.
Yeah.
I mean, so going back to the crime stats, why do you think the chief is doing that? Besides not wanting to look bad, understandably.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking, as you said that too, even the TDA stuff that happened. I mean, he came out publicly on that. I was joking with a couple people. He's like, we know where you're at and we'll find you. I'm like, well, if you know where that, why didn't you go get him? Why would you publicly make that announcement? That's kind of weird to.
Because it's tough talk. He's on the media and it makes it look like,
If you know where they're at, then go get them.
Well, did you know, and this was according to Manny Pelaez, that the chief polls in the top 3 topics in San Antonio? He's one of the top 3.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. So he says, obviously the public loves him. When I could say this, the majority of the officers don't. They don't like him. And we had a vote of no confidence, I think, back in 2016.
Well, and I wouldn't doubt it, but I also know even the sheriff's that much better vote, right? He's
a whole nother podcast.
He's a politician at heart, and so we got some problems on that level.
Have you seen what they're doing though with the crime stats? Okay, so do you know anything about the UTSA Crime Stopper?
Vaguely, not enough to be able to.
Well, to me, for one, that is a scientific experiment. That's all it is. You got these guys, they're professors and law and whatever they do, and And so they've started this program to see, let's see if this works. So the city, obviously, you got to have the police department implement it, and you have to implement it this way. It's designed this way. Like if I'm going to make this concoction, it takes, 2 milliliters of this and 4 milliliters of that, whatever. That's how you have to implement that scientific project. So they were picking out areas in the city that had what they thought was the most crime. And their idea was to take a patrol car with 2 police officers, because 2 is better than 1. And they would take the patrol car and they'd sit there with their lights on. So they're very, very obvious.
Yeah.
And for 15 minutes, not 13 minutes, it had to be 15 minutes, because I'm hearing this from these guys.
And just sitting there, like not just patrolling, just sitting there.
Just sitting there. And they were supposed to, like, if they were, and here's the other thing. And this is, to me, total bullshit, because most of their hotspots were in apartment complexes.
Yeah.
Well, these apartment complexes, number one, are privately owned, investor owned. You're providing free security for the apartment complexes. So depending on how, let's say they got, 400 units, it's this address, unit number, whatever. So when you look at that area right there, it counts as, because they're all different addresses, 400 different addresses. And you measure the crime going down. Well, yeah, these crooks are not stupid. I'm not going to commit a crime with the cops sitting right there, even though these guys were instructed. If I'm right here and this is the street and there's a call over here, you're not to move.
Yeah,
because it screws up the whole thing. So it was, and so the chief, and I spoke to the Republican Women's Group a couple of years back, year and a half or so back. And I brought a newspaper. I don't read the newspaper, but I brought the newspaper because on the headline was crime has dropped 30-something%. But if you read the article, that's only in the hot spots. If you go down to the back, a crime is only down 7% in the city. So it's just to show that we're doing something, and they're giving you real stats, but only in the hot spots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, that woman was shot in downtown, leaving that poor older lady, grandma, watching her grandchild graduate from college, get shot in the head by 2 idiots that were fighting. You had the one coach that was shot at the bar downtown. And what does the chief mention? Well, they weren't in hot spots. Well, why not make the whole fucking city hotspots? You know,
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Why nobody would pick up on that or report on that?
because it's sold and crafted in a way to make them look good.
Yeah.
You know, and again, you know, and I heard from all the officers hated working that because
Is
they
it
were
still going on, or they only did
it's
it
still
for the
going
plan?
on. But see, it was supposed to happen in phases, and the phases were also supposed to be happening together. But because of the money, the department, for one, they already screwed up the mixture because they weren't implementing it at the same time, like they said, that like it was designed to do. So that's what's coming around with, or while you're saying these people see that, they feel the crime, their car's been stolen. Rolando Pablos got his vehicle broken into the other day, and not to mention it was raining. They left it open.
Well, on top of that, I mean, his opponents, somebody leaked his address. I mean, that was malicious intent behind doing that.
Sure.
Yeah. You know,
got
and I
doxed.
think we need change. To your point earlier, have we had enough to change more conservative or that type of view? I don't know. The one thing I would say is, you know, I talked to the president of the police association about this specifically is, you know, they want to stay out of the race until they get into a runoff. And my concern is the candidate you like and want might not get into the runoff. And leadership is not sitting back waiting. Leadership is putting forward and leading the way and saying, this is who we want. This is the person that will be the best person for particularly the mayoral race. For the mayoral race that we know will support our initiatives and support law and order and support us and back the blue and et cetera, et cetera. So
why do you think they're doing that?
I can't answer for them. I don't know. I mean,
Your take.
I don't like them. I obviously, and I sent to you earlier, you know, I came out on a limb. This is a bipartisan race where every Republican and Democrat runs in one race. And so neither party is supposed to be getting involved. You're not really supposed to start party line. You mentioned that. But unfortunately it is. You know the values of where they stand. You know who they vote with. You know who they support and who they're with. And which is why I went towards one candidate, not as the vice chair, but as myself as a human being and citizen of the city of San Antonio, is that very thing. I think we got one shot to get this right. This is the first time in San Antonio's history that we've had a termed out mayor and 5 open city council seats. First time. And I don't know if we'll ever have that again in our lifetime. We
got to take advantage of it.
You got to take advantage of it, which means you don't sit, you don't wait. And which is why I came out publicly and said that I'm supporting, I don't endorse because I'm not an elected official, but I'm supporting one candidate. And my choice and who I would support is the Republican candidate, Rolando Pablos. And I think because of that, there's a couple of reasons why. Is out of 27 candidates, there's only one candidate who has the established relationship with the Texas leadership.
Yeah.
And why that's so important, you mentioned about it earlier in your mantra I was opening up, is Governor Abbott and the Texas leadership controls the 8th largest economy in the world. Not in the U.S., in the world. The next economy close to us is France, the country of France.
Wow, didn't know that.
It's huge. And why Austin is doing better than us, and Houston and Dallas, and why they're getting all this economic development and businesses and support is because they, quote unquote, work with the Texas leadership. Our San Antonio leadership is adversarial against the Texas leadership.
Yeah.
Not only do they not support him or like him, they go against him. They call him out. They don't like him.
Yeah.
They every turn they can. Our
Because
media
he's
implicit in it.
Republican.
Why would Governor Abbott help bring businesses here and drive development, economic stability, and jobs, and creation, and growth, and support, and money? Why would he do that? If I was in this seat, I wouldn't do that either.
Sure.
And so for me, being a citizen of city of San Antonio, I've lived here since 2009. I'm Texas born. Plan on staying the rest of my life. I want this to be the best damn city. I want to have the best damn mayor so that my kids and grandkids will stay here and they have economic development and businesses and everything to help, and that the city is safe, which is what I love your initiative on Blu Wolf doing. You support police and law and order. Well, that's what we need.
Because there's nothing else. And I've said this, like, look, man, knock yourself out. I don't care for them, but knock yourself out and paint in crosswalks rainbow colored in certain places. But the issue is those districts around there, they cannot enjoy whatever they're doing if they're not safe. They will always run to say, hey, I can't, go to this club or park my vehicle here. It's going to get broken into, or I might get robbed because somebody got robbed over here.
Nor will a business come in and say, hey, let's invest a hub here.
Yes.
When your crime rates are out of the roofs, when you care about more woke liberal policies than you do about stability, infrastructure.
So
I made fun of, I sat with a county commissioner, I'm not going to say who it was, lunch, and I said, how is it a common member of society can see where the growth of city of San Antonio is, but you guys can't? You're 10 years behind the growing curve of the city of San Antonio.
No doubt.
The infrastructure of 604 should have been done 10 years ago. Your healthcare facilities and the growth and the housing development, 10 years behind it. You guys are missing the curve. So this stuff like that for me is very, very frustrating.
Yeah. So you talked about the association and them not endorsing the candidate. You and I spoke about it, and I think it's wrong. I've had some other people reach out to me, and I don't care at this point. Excuse me. I believe my opinion of it, I think is valid. Obviously, that's why I have the podcast. But what I don't like is we're taking a very passive stance on that.
Yeah.
And to me, the association president is betting on that we'll just kind of sit, wait. And that's what, SWAT, but he and I were both on SWAT together. Okay. Special Weapons and Tactics. You know what it really stood for? Sit, wait, and talk. While the negotiators try to negotiate. So we're taking that.
Funny,
we're taking that stance right now because obviously, they're thinking that aggressiveness, is not right now. But when you talk about the timing, I think the timing is now to step up because there are so many people, I believe, more than they think, that support law enforcement that are waiting for our endorsement. Hey, who do you think is going to be best? You know what I mean? And instead of you're sitting back and you're friggin' hoping, well, for one, they're saying, well, there's so many candidates that we don't want to have to re-endorse. Okay, so you might get it wrong up front. Okay, but you should pick, and you were staunch in who you supported.
Well, and let me correct too. I don't think any candidate at 27 is going to win this right out. Nobody.
No, yeah.
So the best shot you have is to get.
How many legitimate out of 27 Republicans you think there are in true Republicans in the?
Oh, I mean, I think in the race, I think we have 5 in the race ourselves that are running.
Legitimate though, I mean, because you have some rhinos, some cowards that.
What I will not do. And the only reason, one of the only reasons I came out publicly is because the Democratic Party came out and went against a quote unquote Republican candidate, attack ads. So I didn't like that. And I think the party should have, and which I didn't do on behalf of the party, but I did my own, is went in support of that candidate for that. I don't think that was the right thing to do. And actually called out Manny Pelez in his Facebook post on that, actually called out the Democratic Party for doing that. You can't say there's a bipartisan race and the Democratic Party is attacking a quote unquote Republican candidate. I don't like that. Two, and the other thing is I will never talk bad about any candidate. Any person who puts their name on a ballot and actually puts their face and actually tries their hardest, that's a tough job. As you mentioned, I ran for U.S. Congress in 22. It's not an easy task. So I will never attack a candidate, except for my opponent, Joaquin Castro. That's some person. I'll throw that in there. That's the only person I will attack. But the rest of them, I won't attack Republican. But what I will say is here's who I'm supporting, and here's why. Doesn't mean I'm downplaying any of them. I think from the Democrat side, obviously you're going to get two runoff, right? The top leading 2 candidates will have a runoff. I'm hoping to God that we can get Rolando Pablos in there.
Here's what again, this is the association strategy, and this is what I can gather without hearing it outright from the horse's mouth. They're going to wait. They're saying, well, there's so many, it's going to end up in a runoff. So you're afraid that you might pick the wrong one, when I believe you should stand up and say, this is, and if they're the, I won't even say they're the wrong ones. They just didn't vote for the right one. Yeah. So then you're going to have a runoff between a couple of them.
And if your candidate you don't like is not in the runoff, what are you going to do? Stay quiet on that too?
No.
You know what I mean?
You know what they're going to do? They're going to decide who's asked to kiss, and they can still be wrong on that. You know what I mean? That's a weak stance.
I agree.
I believe it's a weak stance, and I think there's a lot of other officers that believe, because you hear them, because they've been endorsing certain council candidates, but the people are asking, hey, who? So they're not stepping up. And again, I believe it's wrong. And I'll stick to that no matter what. And as you believe, we believe in the same thing.
I don't think it's the right call. I mean, they're entitled to. He's the president of the association.
Well, there's so many other things going on.
There is.
Yeah.
I hope they get it right. I hope we have, again, it's the same thing when Joe Biden got into office. I hope he was the best damn president for the United States ever. I don't really care for his politics, his policies, or party too much, but I hope he was the best damn president, because guess when he's successful, I'm successful.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I hope it's the same thing for the mayor, whoever it is, male, female, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, I don't care. Get the best person in.
So here's my take on that personal. Hopefully, we just have a few more minutes with you. I know you're a busy man. I'm a kind of a cut and dry at this point, cut and dry guy.
Yeah.
If you get another Democrat into the mayoral office, they're still, and they may not claim to be, but their history has shown that they are.
Interjecting, our current mayor was supposed to be nonpartisan, extreme partisan.
Yeah, yes.
So throw that
good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Good point. So if we have, and there's some people that, I like what Manny had to say about public safety. Melissa Haverda is on the Public Safety Committee. Now, I like a lot of what she said, but the thing is, in the end, they're Democrats. And so what they don't understand, and what we've talked about already about the crime, don't believe the crime stats. I believe crime is higher. There's no way it could be lower, like the chief says, when we have so many, with the experienced officers leaving, and then you have rookies training rookies, and we had an influx of illegals in the city. The officers aren't doing what they should be doing, and not because they're cowards. It's because they're in fear of not retaliation, but prosecution by this sore spot DA. Administrative discipline by this, to me, the coward chief, because he's firing guys for no reason, just based on the optics of it. So what's going to happen? It's like, you have children, you're involved in disciplining them. If you let your child go so far, like if you don't raise them right and they're up, and once they get to the teen years and they're little shits, it's going to be hard to bring them back. Sure. So this is going to have to be tougher on your discipline up here when you weren't consistent all the way here. So now when things get bad enough, and like I've said, they haven't, when they get bad enough and the chief can no longer lie about the crime stats, now we're going to have to spank these bad children. And these people, their character they can't handle it. They can't handle what has to happen. You know what I mean? So if you want police enforcement, it is not more de-escalation. It's handling these people to put them back in check. So they have this, and I'll have to say it, there's this fear of the consequences with law enforcement.
Yeah. You
don't resist, you don't run, you don't point a weapon. And thank God we've been on the winning end of police shootings. We've had some that are, lost, things that they'll never get back, an eye, hearing, things like that. So I just don't believe any candidate that claims that, again, not claims, but are leaning Democrat has the character to do what's necessary later down the road.
Well, and I hope, because you said you interviewed two, which are Democrat. I know they don't say that, but they are. And you interviewed at least one Republican. I hope all of them stood for law and order.
And I think they will. And that what they'll do is, like what's happening.
You got to stand up, though.
No, 100%.
You have to.
But you also have to get a leader that knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, the best advice I could give any mayoral candidate, particularly on the police stuff, is listen to the police officers. Listen to the front line.
They don't want to.
That is the best leadership, that advice I can give any. And again, I'm a CEO of a hospital, hundreds and hundreds of employees, and that's the best advice I can give anybody.
But you have to manage it the same way. You have your frontline people.
Yeah, sure, but I listen to them, right? I listen to the people that are around, because they're the ones doing the job, right? As a mayor, you're not picking up a badge and a gun and going out in the middle of the night and going to domestic violence. You're not doing that stuff, and you never will, nor do we call on you to do that. But you should, sure as hell, and as a chief of police, listen to the frontline officers and what's going on and make recommendations.
It's not happening, and he doesn't care about the morale. He personally said morale is up to the sergeants. Which the sergeants are your very first line of supervisors. These guys are sometimes they still want to do some patrol type stuff work, you know what I mean, and all that. But and again, that's a longer conversation with them. And it's definitely a good point that they should do this. But again, this guy right here up top, Chief McManus, it's time for him to go, I believe.
Yeah.
The other is who is she going to replace him with? Because it could be just someone worse. someone, because McManus is still somewhat old school. You bring someone up in here.
He's been the chief how long?
Too long. I don't know the exact number of years, but it's, you remember he left. He went to CPS, and then Scully brought him back. We had someone in the interim who I would have liked to have seen flourish, Tony Trevino, that she made in the interim. He was homegrown. He wasn't from DC or Phoenix or whatever, some other place. And again, that's on its own. But obviously my concern is the health and morale and the well-being of the officers that are making the city safe for everybody. And it's not for one side. We're the ones that can't be partisan. We have to be bipartisan and protect, and we do. No one differentiates between, are you a Democrat? I'm not going to do this for you. We respond.
Yeah, I mean, my take on any of it, and again, I hope all mayor candidates like this is, we don't do enough for our police officers. We don't support them enough. We don't pay them enough. We don't protect them enough. We don't help them out enough. We don't have enough of them. You can't build a society without law and order.
How long have you been in San Antonio?
2009.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know how many officers are we short right now? Like 200, something like that, at least on the SAPD.
I
think the sheriff is also short. Obviously, I know in the prison and the community areas.
Now you notice I've kind of stayed away from Javier Salazar. It's kind of, it would be echoing the same things within the police department. Yeah, because like I said, that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself. But one thing about him and our chief, which kind of keeps them in the good graces with the public, they're real good at the fluff.
Yeah,
they're being in front of the camera, acting like they care, and I'm not saying they don't care, but they're not doing everything that they should, because then they got to worry about, to me, answering the hard questions to all the anti-police people, which we have a lot of in San Antonio.
We barely won.
Yeah,
when they tried defunding the police department here in San Antonio.
And I keep saying, and I want to tell Danny, dude, we are still. They cannot do without us.
It was 51-49.
Yeah,
we barely won. That's how deep and rooted it is.
And these people are still here. They're still working every day to defeat us and all. And again, so I'm almost like, you know what? Let them see what's going to happen. Yeah. We're going to get there soon enough.
That's and
I don't want to say the blue flu.
I know Austin, the next closest city that did defund, $150 million out of their budget. Weren't, a house breaking, a car breaking. They weren't sending an officer. Good luck. You're to figure. Just stuff like that. There are so many things that impacted. And then now, obviously, President Trump and obviously through Governor Abbott have initiated that any county or city that defunds their police will lose federal funding, et cetera. So that stopped a lot of it. So
I think what they need, and not to go back to him, but we always hear about George Soros. And I have yet to hear them, like this, talk about an international terrorist. They need to label that asshole, and then because this dude is behind everything. He's like the Lex Luthor, and he keeps on rearing his ugly head. But no one, for whatever reason, even on the Republican side, wouldn't talk a lot about it.
Yeah, there's stuff that's I've heard. I follow national politics a little bit closer. I saw multiple things out on him this week, particularly his son, because they're based in Austin. The son is, at least.
Oh, he's going to be way worse.
Yeah, and just some of the funding they received through some grants to the federal level, like $260 million. There's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, he's got all kinds of things.
I don't get it. I don't get why people don't want America to flourish. And
so tell me this, being part of the Bexar County GOP, where are you wanting to see the party, and involved in the city? How close are you?
Yeah, I think we need to get involved, right? When we have one county commissioner on the court, we have one city councilman on city council, and then we got like 3 state reps, we got 2 state senators, obviously 3 U.S. congressmen, 2 U.S. congressmen, then you got both U.S. senators, and then obviously the Texas leadership in charge to Abbott, Paxton, Patrick are all 3 Republicans. I think we got a lot of work to do, particularly here in Bexar County. I was just in an article with San Antonio Express News on Sunday, and Bexar County, particularly in San Antonio, is a focal point for the Democratic Party. They know if they can keep this strong, that they can eventually turn the state of Texas purple. That's their hopes. Yeah. That's their ambitions.
Yeah.
I think President Trump did a lot for that. He increased his voter turnout in Houston. 46% voted for President Trump, 45% voted for him here in Bexar County. I hope we're continuing on that wave.
But you know what's crazy is that he is working his ass off.
He is.
To, promises made, promises kept. I believe there's going to come a point, because, this whole thing with the tariffs, of course, the left is just, they're all chicken littles. The sky is falling. Yeah. They're not trusting in the process. I think that the process is going to come, and when they see it's going to come to fruition, I believe within the 2 years, and they're going to go, holy shit. Yeah. He's doing better for me here.
Yeah. I had people calling me out because I support the tariffs. Look, we're talking on the national level, right? We're $36 trillion.
Saying you support the tariffs?
I do support them. Yeah. The tariffs?
Oh, the tariffs. I said the terrorists.
No.
Okay. I get it.
I'm not for terrorists. I am for tariffs.
Right.
And the first thing...
They're a tool.
Yeah. Well, and on the top of that, most people don't realize it's called reciprocal tariffs. They forget the first word. Yeah. It's reciprocal. What does reciprocal mean? That means Japan has tariffs on us. If tariffs don't work, why are other countries doing it to us? That's number one.
But that's not out in the news.
It's not. Number two is people don't realize we're $36 trillion in debt. We're a broke nation. We have $2 trillion deficit. We have $1 trillion in interest we spend every single year. That's more than we spend our national defense, which is like $840 billion. We're in debt. We have a problem. You need to fix it, right? And so by doing reciprocal tariffs, you go to South Korea, which we pump up with tens and tens of billions of dollars for military. We can't get American products in there. You go to Japan, there are no American products in there. People think China's the force. If other countries wanted China's crap, they would have already figured out how to do it. You know why they come to America? Because we're the largest consumer in the world. We consume $27 trillion a year. It's 30 to 40% of the economy of China.
Wow.
That is why people don't realize why we're in the driving seat. Yeah. And because of that, President Trump knows that. And it's going to be huge. They're estimating $750 billion in tariffs every year alone. And anybody making, the last number I heard was $200,000 or less, no income tax.
I'm hearing that.
Now let's just
imagine it when that happens. I'm going to say when, what it's going to do.
But why? People don't understand why. If you don't have to pay 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever tax number you pay every single year, that's discretionary income. What are you going to do with that? You're going to buy stuff, build stuff, and invest in stuff. Yeah. And when you do that, that is a massive boom to what? The economy. And it is now the middle class. On top of that, tariffs bring in manufacturing jobs.
Sure.
$7 trillion of business already been promised to build.
But just like what you said, and not to get off on the same subject, but because San Antonio is not playing well with the state government, we're holding ourselves back in our own economy.
Elon Musk built a huge plant in Houston. Why didn't San Antonio get a fighting chance for that?
Yeah, exactly. They're turning away, just like, we talked with Rolando Pablos, they turned away the RNC.
Yeah.
How much money in revenue would that have, simply because you don't want those people.
They don't get it. The economic development stability is not there. They don't get it. So I don't know. I mean, I hope the day that we can see this. I love San Antonio. It's a great city. I appreciate what you're doing, man. You're doing great work with all your podcasts.
What you're doing. Bexar County as a Bexar County vice chair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the little part I can. The little following that follows me, the people that support me. I'm very vocal. Try to stay very active, involved in stuff. I'm not scared to speak my mind, and I'm not scared to talk to people that have their own opinion. Actually, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you're very knowledgeable. And
even now, I've never demeaned any single person. I don't talk down about people. I just want this to be a better city, a better community, and we all get to flourish. So
you're a better person than I am.
But I'm not.
I call a spade a spade.
No, I do. Don't get me wrong. I do. But I'm also not ignorant to realize that it starts with the leaders.
Yeah.
And you have to have good people running. You have to have good people involved in doing it for the right reason. So.
Is there anything that the listeners can do to help the Bexar County GOP?
Yeah, it's like get involved. In the general public, you have the general public, some people that don't vote, some people only vote every 4 years, some people vote in the midterm, some people are active, some people are involved, some people actually run for office, some people help candidates. There's so many different levels, but get involved, get off the couch. right? We have so many people that complain.
Is there things? And we'll put it up there.
There's
the website for it.
BexarGOP.org is our website. Go to there. You have list of activities, events. You have clubs. You have candidate stuff going on. I got involved and got further involved. Ran for office. Got further involved after that. I enjoy talking with people.
Other things for volunteers to do?
Absolutely. Every candidate right now is doing block walking, phone banking, all sorts of stuff in order to get their message out. And I'd say pick a candidate, get behind them. Just because I chose Rolando doesn't mean I don't support other ones. Go for it. I tell everybody, I'm glad you're voting. We need to vote.
Yeah.
We just passed 53,000 people yesterday. Today's our last day of early voting. And then you have the last day of voting, which is, that's a horrible turnout. We might break 60,000 people out of 2.5 million for a municipal race. For
I think anybody, like any mayoral candidate, if they could figure out a way to get more of the people out to vote, obviously to vote for them, but I mean, there's such a low turnout.
It is,
period.
Except for I got involved and had worked hand in hand with Attorney General Paxton to sue the county, Bexar County, because of what the county did. The first time in 20 years they did it. They allowed a third-party voting harvesting organization to get out and quote unquote try to get people vote. My whole thing was that third-party organization also owned another company that was very partisan, that used data to help get a progressive Democrats elected. So I had major issues with that, to the point where I actually testified in the Texas Senate and the Texas House in this last session is to get a law passed in the state of Texas where you cannot have counties giving federal or municipal tax dollars to third-party voter harvesting. That's done by the parties, that's done by the candidates, and that's done by the county. Should not be done by a third party. Okay. So that's a piece.
So when's the Joaquin Castro's term?
Yeah, they're every 2 years. So candidates have to file usually by the mid-December of 25 for a 2026 bid. So, my biggest thing.
Still thinking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still thinking about it. My biggest thing, and I've been in the press tons of times and talked to him a couple times, but do your damn job, man. If you were to fight hard, and he's on a couple of committees, and the best analogy I can see is Henry Cuellar is from a different party, but he fights hard for San Antonio. He gets millions of dollars vetted and brought back to the city. Where Joaquin Castro, because I don't know what his deal is, because he's in a seat and safe, he doesn't work hard for us. He doesn't work hard for the people of San Antonio. He doesn't fight for
he is a true Democrat. His mom raised him that way.
The only thing I don't like too is like you're so damn racist, man. All you talk about is Hispanic, Latino. Like, I'm white. Mom. I live in your district. I'm not against any Hispanic or Latino, but you have more people. You have African American, you have Hispanics, you have Filipinos. Like, come on, man, you represent all of us.
Yeah, but when you have a mom that was a true radical, I agree. She believes that we should give Texas back to Mexico. I mean, that's
take it one step further, because this ties into the police. She's the prior board member of TOP. For people don't know what TOP is, they
Texas Organizing Project.
Absolutely, funding to get.
And who gives to them?
Soros.
So George Soros. There you go.
So there's massive ties, but that's the thing for me. Yeah. So I don't know in the future. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, when hopefully you decide to run against it.
Yeah, I'll let you guys know. I'll come back on.
And come back on. Yeah, please. I'd like to have my buddy David with there, and
so much to talk about. I apologize. We're kind of all over the place, but there's so much to talk about.
I think it. I like to be more spontaneous. Yeah. And if there were, in fact, everything that you brought up, pretty much brought up ahead of time, because I was going to get to it. So I just go with it, because it leads in, obviously, in your mind and even in my mind to go that way. But I appreciate you coming on and spending the time with us. And, hopefully we get more leaders like yourself to step up, have that same passion. I wish I could. I am so devoted to my family. I'm so busy, with things and I feel stupid saying that with only 2 children, and the same thing, but it's tough. It's definitely a family adventure. And if you decide to run, not you personally, I'm just saying in general, the family's got to be committed. Well, I've been told I should run for sheriff. I just don't have the energy for it. Yeah, the one thing, it definitely has to be in your heart. For me, it was definitely a religious thing too, right? I felt the stirring of God's hand, and family supportive of it. And at that time, my employer was supportive of it. But for me, the biggest thing is I couldn't stay quiet. Yeah. I couldn't stay quiet. Well, I mean, obviously, this is what I'm doing here. With what I can. It's just, I never thought I'd be speaking to someone like yourself.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be all, hey, look at this video. They screwed up your tactics. And instead, here we are getting in with important people like yourself that are involved in politics and our city and our state, like Rolando Pablos and speaking
Keep
to
fighting.
him. So, when you talk about God, that's God leading me that way, that path. And I guess he sees something productive in us.
Keep going, man.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate what you guys are doing. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put a plug in for you for sure if I like that idea.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, we'll have to have dinner with you and the wife. We'll convince the wife.
Yeah,
That's number one. For sure.
Yeah, that would
That's
be
awesome.
the biggest one. So.
We need some help in the sugar department. So,
Well, thank you.
all right. Well, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.